Thank you all for coming out today. It really is nice to be back on a college campus. This is my first on-campus talk in probably about 2 years. So it's nice being back at Pace. I've done talks with this group before, with the Tech Collective. It's always a lot of fun. My name is Fitzpatrick. I'm the University Relations Manager with Crestron Electronics. We are about a half an hour away from here, just over the border in Rockledge, New Jersey. We hire a number of PACE students for internships and co-ops and other various roles. We are being recorded today, so if you have questions or if you're answering some of our answers, just please make sure you project so that way the camera picks it up and it'll show up on YouTube probably by the end of the week. I also will invite everybody, whether they want to do it now or they want to do it at the end. I brought some giveaways for everyone. One is just a little packet about opportunities with the company. Because during the talk, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the topic at hand, right? Soft skills for STEM students is what I call this presentation. I want to focus on those areas, on those specific topics, as opposed to talking as much on the company side. So I provided that information here. And then in the back, you'll see that there is a spreadsheet that is incredibly difficult to see. You cannot read this unless you have really good eyes or a very strong magnifying glass. This is a listing of a bunch of our open internships and co-ops. If you email me, I will send you the Excel spreadsheet where all the job titles are hyperlinks. So if you find a job or an internship that interests you, you can just click right on it, go to that job on the website, and we will contact you from there. I also brought some cards for people who want to stay in touch, my business card, and then as a little gift just for showing up today, although I know the pizza is infinitely more exciting, I brought webcam covers for everybody, just something to have. I know you probably all have them, but just in case, there you go. So let's jump in, because I have a lot to cover in the next 45 minutes or so, and I want to make this as interactive as possible. So once more, just to recap, my name is Fitzpatrick. I've been in talent acquisition for about 15 years now, handling a variety of different disciplines, primarily campus recruiting, internship, and co-op programs. I also oversee diversity and inclusion, veteran recruitment programs, as well as some areas of organizational development and community partnerships. So anything that deals with talent and the communities that my company works in, that's where I want to be, that's where I want to be involved. So I enjoy my little niche of HR because it has a lot to do with hiring people, developing them, training them, watching them get promoted, watching them grow, and watching the company more successful in the community. I frequently say I have the coolest job in the world because what I get is a front row seat to watch people's careers from the very formative stages, and that is a lot of fun for me. I have a degree in business from Montclair State University and recently a master's from University of Arizona in organizational management. A bunch of different ways to stay in touch. Again, if you grab the connection cards, you'll see them right there, but please, definitely keep in touch with me. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, that's great. I put presentations like these up on my YouTube channel. You also see my Instagram and my Twitter. Anybody who wants to stay in contact in any way, please feel free. If you're active on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you there. I do post a lot of opportunities there as well, but whatever you're comfortable with. And at the end, please take as much of this information as you would like. All right, so I mentioned that this was going to be interactive, and I wasn't lying to you. I have a whole bunch of questions that I'm going to pose to the group today, and the first one is right here. What is the difference between hard skills and soft skills? These are buzz terms in talent acquisition, in organizational development, and you've probably heard some of these terms at school during some of your discussions. So who wants to take a stab at what they see as the difference between hard skills and soft skills? Anybody can jump in. Somebody's going to break the ice.
I would say hard skills are something like abilities that can be measured and graded. While soft skills are more case-by-case things, you know, just you can't really measure it, but you can understand that it's there.
So quantitative versus qualitative,
yeah,
maybe to a certain extent? Okay, yeah. Interesting. Good thoughts, thank you. And you just took another bite. I wouldn't have been able to stare at the pizza for 5 more seconds either, right? We'll come back to you. Anyone else? Somebody give my man like 10 seconds.
I feel like the term soft skills implies that they're a bit more intuitive than hard skills, whereas hard skills is something you have to work towards.
Okay. All right, so are soft skills a little bit more intuitive? I think that's an interesting question as well. Good. Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
So soft skills are more of like leadership, exactly how you describe yourself, but your hard skills are more related to what you really did with your major. So I guess more like if you were talking about like computer science or information technology, it would be like your technical skills.
Okay, so technical skills, I'm going to put a circle around that one, right? Because I think that technical skills definitely fall under the hard skill category. And all your definitions are really great, and we have a lot of really kind of a good focus here. Hard skills are very often technical in nature. They also tend to be very specific to an industry or a particular area, right? Now, how many of you in this group are computer science majors? Right, as I understand, a lot of you are comp sci majors. So examples of hard skills that might be very specific to computer science or your area of expertise would include your programming languages, right? If you are proficient at C, C++, C#, just as an example, those are hard skills, technical skills, right? They are measurable. I think that was a really interesting call out. They are, I think, a little bit easier to measure in terms of, are you a beginner, are you an amateur, are you an expert? And I only use those terms because that's what Simon used to tell me when I would mess up the pattern, and it would tell me that I'm either a beginner or an amateur or an expert, right? But that's kind of the idea behind the hard skill is, yeah, you can measure them, but they tend to be very specific to a field. Soft skills tend to be a little bit more transferable. They apply to a wider range of different roles. Yes, you can use programming skills in areas other than just strictly a computer science related role, but it tends to be a little bit more specific, a little bit narrower. We have a couple seats over here if you would like. You're welcome to. So it tends to be a little bit more specific to those types of roles, whereas soft skills are a little bit more universal, regardless of your major, regardless of your area of expertise. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, awesome. Now you also notice that in this first slide, I put an asterisk here next to soft skills. Don't let me forget to explain why that asterisk is there. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. Because the more and more I give this presentation, and the more I read and study and lecture about this, the more I'm starting to really hate that term. I don't like the soft skills term as much as I did even 2-3 years ago, and I'll tell you a little bit why later. It's one of those terms I think eventually is going to become obsolete. Like in the diversity, equity, inclusion circles, how many of you have heard the term melting pot? Right, we're a melting pot. You heard that as a way of describing diversity in America or in the New York, New Jersey metro area. I hate that term, right? Have any of you ever been to the melting pot, the actual restaurant? Have you ever had fondue? I see some people smiling, laughing. What happens when you get a pot of fondue? What does it look like?
Just like a pot.
Right, it's a pot, and they put, let's say, 4 or 5 different cheeses in that pot. They all melt together, they homogenize. Right? That's not what diversity is. So I switched out the term melting pot for the term salad bowl. It can all be amalgamated, it can all be mixed together, but everything maintains its own individual color, flavor, shape, individuality, authenticity, whereas a melting pot is designed to homogenize everything. Well, same thing with soft skills. Right? I don't like the term as much because I think it denotes that they're almost less important. And the opposite is true. They're actually more important. Here's one of the things I want you to know about soft skills, is they're probably better off called human skills. Right? And by human skills, what I mean is that you need a person to do them effectively, and they're harder to automate. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay? So that's hard skills versus soft skills. So now question number 2. What is the skills gap? Right now we're hearing a lot about the labor gap. Right? Employers have jobs, not enough workers. You're hearing this all over. What's the cause? Blah, 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 blah. But a lot longer than there's been a labor gap, there's been a skills gap. What does that mean?
Using context clues, I'm going to say that maybe there's a lot of people with hard skills and not enough soft skills.
Okay.
And maybe too many people with soft skills and they don't know anything about hard skills.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is they're not mutually exclusive. That's one thing I would add to that, is that the skills gap could apply to hard and soft skills. It could apply to both. It could apply to neither depending on the person. But you're definitely on the right track with that. I think that that's a really great call out. Who else would like to take a stab at what we mean by the skills gap? Do we have any business majors or business minors in the room? Has anybody ever taken a business course? Does anybody know what business is? Okay, we have a couple of people raising their hands. What is one of the first laws or first rules that you learned about economics? Want to take a stab at it? Yeah.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Thank you. 100% right. Supply and demand. The skills gap is like a skills version of supply and demand. Employers demand certain skills for their workplaces to run at peak efficiency. But if the skills don't exist in the labor market, a gap exists, and that can be a challenge, okay? So let's, yeah.
And then there's the law of diminishing returns, where I think it's like you can only hire like a certain number of people before the pay or the wages start to like decrease. It's kind of wild.
Yep, yep. I mean, it's actually really interesting. You bring up a great point. How economics, if you take money out of economic discussion and instead put skills in it, how closely they relate, right? It really is fascinating when you think about it that way. I think that's a great call out. So here's a poll. Let's have a little bit of fun. How many of you are game show fans? Do we have any game show fanatics here? That is one of my life's obsessions. Love the party hat. Outstanding one. I'm a big game show fan. I often refer to myself as an aspiring game show host. So we're going to do a little Price is Right or a little card sharks here, right? We're going to do a little card shark, right? There we go. Card sharks, a little over under. All three of these answers are going to be percentages. What percentage of recent college graduates feel that they are well prepared for the workforce? What percentage? Let's throw a couple out. Let's see if you're high or low. Yeah.
Maybe 50?
50%. We're going to right in the middle, half and half. I say 50% of college students think they are well prepared for the workforce. Who else?
65.
65%. All right. Who else? Yeah. 55%. Split the difference.
Say 75.
75%.
15.
15. Okay.
I was gonna say 30.
30. All right. So everyone bid $1, right? We go $1. That way, if everyone overbids, you win the showcase. No. Okay.
56, what is it?
87%. 87% of recent college graduates come out of school feeling as though they are well prepared for the workforce. Not perfectly prepared, but well enough prepared where they are ready to get a job and they're ready to engage the workforce. Okay? So who had 65? You had 65? Did anybody have higher than 65?
I had 75.
You had 75. Okay, I knew it was right in that range. Okay, good job. So we'll award first and second prize right here. So gold and the silver. All right, not too shabby. Let's see how we do on the second one. What percentage of hiring managers feel recent graduates are prepared for the workforce? Now you have to think like a hiring manager. What percentage of the people who are responsible for interviewing you and hiring you think that you are prepared for the workforce? I'm going to give you a hint. It's not 87%.
We'll go with 75 again.
75. Okay.
80.
80%.
66.
66%.
45.
45%.
15 again.
15 again. Sticking with I hitched my horse to that wagon. Okay.
Oh.
That's low.
Right? So there's our 50%. Half of hiring managers agree. But think about that. You have 10 students in a room. Approximately 9 of them say, yes, I am prepared for the workforce. Opposite those 10 students, you have 10 hiring managers. 5 of them say you're wrong. All right, so think about that gap and that disparity in how we view workforce readiness. All right, let's do one more. What percentage of executives believe American workers, not just recent college graduates, but the American workforce as a whole, are underskilled? What percentage of executives believe that American workers are underskilled?
I'd say 80.
80%, starting high.
90.
90%. This is a one-upper right here. Everyone says a number and he's like, I'm going to go 10 more down. I like this guy, yeah.
85.
85, splitting the difference. Anybody else? Do we feel pretty good about those numbers? Yes.
95.
95.
92.
Oh, nicely done. No! 80%. Now,
No,
on
you
the,
cheated. Doesn't count.
on
How'd
the
I
Price
cheat?
is Right, hang on, the Price is Right, usually Bob Barker would bring you up and give you $100. I have a webcam covered.
Thank you so
There you go.
much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also have small trophies in my office if you'd like one.
Brilliant.
Perfect.
And a party hat. And a party hat. All right,
Okay.
very cool. But think about that. 92% of executives, the people at the topmost levels of a company, say that overall, macro level, American workers are underskilled. Now that can be hard skills or soft skills. Could be either one. As a matter of fact, LinkedIn did a survey about this just 3 years ago, about the skills gap. And using this tool, they looked at the jobs that were posted online and what skills candidates listed on their profile, and they saw a soft skills gap of 1.6 million. Now, I have not seen a more recent version of this survey. However, I would be willing to bet that that number has grown, has not dropped. As a matter of fact, anybody want to guess what the single biggest factor in why I think that number would have grown is? Anyone want to take a stab at it? What in the last 3 years would have exposed that?
Recent world events.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
COVID.
Like that COVID thing, that reason
Yeah.
that so many of us are wearing masks right now? Yes, absolutely. The COVID thing, right? Now we really found out, well, do our managers possess the ability to effectively lead remote workers or hybrid workers? If they're not, they're exposed all of a sudden. Now we have to upskill them and we have to train them. How many employees have that self-management ability to be able to be at home with the distractions in their home life and be able to set barriers with their work life and understand what work is work and what home is home, right? That can be challenging. And listen, I'll even say that that's a challenge for me. I'm a hybrid worker. I'm in the office about 3 days a week. I'm home about 2. Do you know what I don't see when I'm at the office? A sink full of dishes. You know what that does when I'm at home? It bothers me. At 11 o'clock, I could go over, I could throw the dishes in the dishwasher real quick, and it's hard not to get distracted by that at home. That's a skill that we all need to learn that, incidentally, in 2018, when they did this survey, we weren't really thinking about, were we? How many of you were thinking in 2018 about remote work? Maybe some of you were, right? If anything, this major has a lot of people who are able to do that, but not the way we have to do it now, right? It's really remarkable. So let's go to question number 3. What do you think the top 4 missing soft skills or human skills were in that study? So when LinkedIn did that skills gap study, what do you think the top 4 skills? Now we're doing Family Feud. We moved from Card Sharks and Price is Right. Now we're going over Family Feud.
I would say communication.
Communication. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to give you your webcam cover now. All right. Communication. What else do we think? The number 1 answer is off the board. I'm going to spoil that one for you. Anybody want to guess? We all feel really good about communication.
Teamwork.
Teamwork. That's an excellent answer. Who else? Yeah. Organizational skills. Okay. Yeah. I think that's absolutely a good one. All right. How well do you keep yourself organized? And I would say an extension of that is time management. Was that what you were going to say? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to give myself a webcam cover. All right? I feel like Oprah up here today. You get a webcam cover and you get a webcam cover. It's fun. So there's our answers. All right? 993,000 instances of a gap in oral communication. 140,000 instances of a gap in written communication. 240,000 in, say, a gap in time management, and 221,000 a gap in leadership. So those are our top 4 skills according to LinkedIn. But when you think about it, oral communication and written communication, that means that 71% of this total skills gap can be wrapped up in some form of communication. Now, there are 4 major kinds of communication. I have spoiled 2 of them. Right? So what are the 2 that we see here?
Oral.
Oral or verbal communication. That is the words that you choose, your vocabulary, your sentence structure, all the things that you say. And what's the other one that we spoiled with this chart? Written communication. All right? Written communication takes a lot of different forms professionally. What are they? Shout them out.
Email.
Email. Number 1 answer.
Teams.
What's that?
Teams.
Teams, yeah, absolutely. Any sort of chat function, right? A Teams or a Zoom chat or anything like that. It's a great answer. Who else? We have email, we have Teams.
Social media.
Social media, outstanding answer. What you put out there into the ether, what you post as a Facebook status or anything like that, can be a form of written communication. I'm also going to give you your resume. Is one of the first forms of written communication that a hiring manager or recruiter like me will ever see. That's your first impression, right? So in many ways, you think about how important that is. Before I ever speak to you, I might be reading this 1-page piece of paper that you gave me that is supposed to somehow define and compartmentalize your professional life, right? So much emphasis put on the resume. I'm also going to throw out your LinkedIn profile. That is a form of written communication. That is a living resume, right? That is something you can keep updating and keep changing. Okay. We're going to focus on 4 soft skills today. Communication, emotional intelligence, which is a newer topic, networking, and adaptability. Okay? So question 4, 4 main types of communication. We've already identified verbal and written. What are our other 2? Yes.
Nonverbal.
Nonverbal, okay? So nonverbal communication is everything that goes along with what you say. This is your eye contact, and whenever I say eye contact, everyone in the room always looks right at me, because we don't always think about it until somebody mentions it to us. It is our attire, our appearance, our posture, our hygiene. This is the stuff that used to get me in trouble when I was 10. Right? How many of you have ever gotten in trouble and had your mom say to you, well, it's not what you said.
It's how you
How
said
you
it.
said
Yeah, we've all been there. It's how you said it. Right? I was like, oh, now I know I'm in trouble. You know why? Because when I said it, I rolled my eyes. I stomped my feet like a petulant child, like my 5-year-old does now, and I love him for it. Because he's just making me pay for all the things I did to my parents. Right? Nonverbal communication is everything that surrounds the words that you use and adds context. It's also hand gestures, right? Things like that. Things like hygiene can be part of your nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication has taken an even greater center stage during the COVID times than it did previously, and previously it was already thought of as being the most important form of communication. Right? Because now think about the messages we convey when we are meeting people in person. Or think about how we may not be paying attention or cognizant of our nonverbal communication when we're on a virtual meeting, right? And that's cost some people their jobs. I thought my video was off. Nope. All right, so 4 main types of communication: verbal, nonverbal. Written and listening is the last one, and I don't want anybody to forget about the listening skill. Because we think about verbal, nonverbal, and written because it's how we communicate outward, but never lose sight of how you receive information, right? Active listening and being able to engage with somebody. And one of my favorite movies of the 90s, raise your hand if you've ever seen Fight Club.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces? Okay, so if you've seen Fight Club, you might get this reference, but there's this really funny, ironic kind of moment between Ed Norton and Helena Bonham Carter where they talk about listening, and they talk about communication, saying people actually listen to what you say instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. That is the difference between hearing and listening. If you're just hearing somebody, maybe you're just waiting for them to pause so you can jump in and take the conversation. If you're actively listening, you're focused more on what that person is saying, why they're saying it, and of course, how they're saying it. Does this all make sense? Any questions on this so far? Feel pretty good? All right. Outstanding. So then there is the pause words or some of the verbal communication that we use that, honestly, we can all do a little bit better at. And in an interview, a lot of times if you're in a behavioral interview, you may be asked to tell a story. Give me an example of a time that you've dealt with XYZ, that you had to lead a team where somebody was underperforming. Or give me an example of a time that you had to use a certain coding language on a project, what have you. And instead of saying, well, here's what I said, here's what I did, it comes out as, well, I was like, and then they were like, and then he was like, and then she was like, so then I was like. And it just goes down this. How many of you have heard that before? I'm not asking if you've done it. I'm not going to help you like that. But how many of you have heard that sort of language before? Well, I'm going to hopefully solve this problem for everybody, because what I have for you, I brought a copy for everybody, are 76 better ways to say, I was like. All right, now, excuse me. I've only ever been able to do this in 2 breaths. Someday I'll do it in 1, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to read them to you. 76 ways to say I was like better than saying I was like. Are you ready? All right. Articulated, narrated, phonated, recounted, related, said, sounded, told, vocalized, voiced, accounted, alleged, conjectured, considered, deemed, estimated, gossiped, held, hypothesized, reckoned, regarded, reported, thought, announced, communicated, expressed, mentioned, put into words, uttered, verbalized, answered, buzzed, chatted, communicated with, confabulated, conferred, conversed, spoke, acknowledged, acted, answered, countered, felt, rebounded, reciprocated. Recoiled, recurred, replied, returned, reverted, acknowledged, came back, countered, reacted, responded, retorted, echoed, reciprocated, retaliated, returned, fielded the question, got back to, shot back, wrote, corresponded, discourse, dropped a line, dropped a note, established contact, gave a call, heard from, reached out, replied, talked, telephoned. 76 of them, okay? Well, here's a copy of that list for everybody. Someday I'll get it in 1 breath. Now listen, I'm not expecting you all to be in an interview and tell that person, well then I confabulated, right? That might be a little weird, a little high marks for verbal communication, but you get the idea. If you're aware that you have pause words or that you use terms like I was like, he was like, she was like, there are an infinite number, it's not an infinite, there are 76 at least, different ways to say that. What are some other pause words? Like is a big one. But what are other pause words that we can work to get out of our lexicon? Yes? Some of mine's actually okay, good. How about things like literally? Well, that's a good one.
I forgot.
That's okay. That's okay.
How about so?
What's that?
So.
So, comma, right? Absolutely. These can be words that, while they may not harm your communication, they probably don't add anything to it. You know is a big one. I've been guilty of that one before. I had an interview once where somebody used like and you know so many times that I lost track of what they were saying because I started keeping hash marks of the number of times they used like and you know. They said you know 42 times. They said like 117. This was a 1-hour interview. That is almost 2 likes a minute. I don't get that on Facebook. I got like three giggles and a snicker. Okay, that one, I'm not going to use that joke again. Got it. Thanks, guys. All right, so emotional intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about EQ. And the reason we say EQ when we say emotional intelligence, well, shouldn't it be EI? Well, EQ is because emotional intelligence stands in contrast to IQ. IQ is your intelligence quotient. It's measuring your ability to learn and retain information. Emotional intelligence is completely different. And recent studies suggest to us that EQ is a better indicator of professional success than IQ. Here's the other good news. There are a lot of theories that IQ is largely static. It doesn't move very much. EQ is a skill you can learn and you can train and you can develop. Okay? So a couple of the statistics we see up here, 58% of performance in jobs can be related directly to emotional intelligence or EQ. 90% of high performers in the workplace are also high in emotional intelligence, so there's a correlation between the two. 20% of low performers in the workplace are high in EQ. If you have somebody who is a low performer in the workplace, but they have a high emotional intelligence, then on organizational development fronts, we start to take a look at, well, what's their engagement level? Are they in a job that challenges them and makes sense to them? Are they in the right role? Do they need to take a look at a different opportunity? And then my personal favorite, employees with a high EQ make an average of $29,000 more per year than those with a low EQ. Right? And this is because of opportunities for projects to take on different roles, merit increases, even though you will likely not see a performance review, at least not in the short term, with emotional intelligence as a measured skill. Going back to what you said earlier, sir, that can be hard to measure anyway because it's a soft skill. It does influence how your communication may be perceived, how your leadership may be perceived, how your upward mobility may be perceived. So here is a list, here's a chart that talks a little bit about the different feelings we can have. 5 major buckets of feelings, right? We think that there are tons of emotions, and there are. But what this chart says is that there are 5 major emotions: happy, sad, angry, afraid, and ashamed. You will usually be one of those 5. What changes is the intensity of those feelings. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand where you are on this chart when you are there, and what your triggers are that might move you up from a low feeling of one of these emotions to a high feeling of these emotions. Now listen, there are certain instances in which it is perfectly appropriate to be of a high intensity of any one of these feelings. And this is not to suggest that any of this is bad. Emotional intelligence, however, is the ability to not only recognize it, understand it, be aware of it, but also to control it. It's all very Yoda and Dagobah, right? Control, you must learn control, right? So today, I would say, being back here at Pace University, I feel good. To quote James Brown, I feel good. I'm pretty cheerful. I might even be passionate, fired up. If this goes well, maybe I'll be ecstatic, right? Those are all normal things to feel. But it's really when you get into these what are called more destructive emotions that you need to be wary, especially in a professional arena. I want you to separate that out in your mind as well. Your triggers may be completely different in a personal interaction than in a professional interaction. There are a lot of people out there who have high emotional intelligence in personal situations and have low EQ in a professional setting and the other way around. Questions about that? Okay, some interesting stuff. Let's talk about networking. So this is based on a study that was done by Harvard Business Review. 3 major points to keep in mind about networking skills. First of all, social skills. Right? You think about networking along with social skills. This goes back to communication. Major soft skill. They are valued in jobs across the entire wage distribution. It does not matter if you are in the rank and file entry level or if you are at the executive level. There is a value in social skills. Now, that's not to say those are the only things that matter, but they can always make your situation worse, and they can make your situation better. My favorite television show of all time is Mad Men. I'm obsessed with that show. I'm on my 5th go-through right now. Anybody see it? Anybody know the show? Okay. I highly recommend it if you've never seen it before. It moves a little slow, but it's ingenious. And there's a great quote in, I think, season 2 of Mad Men, where the character Roger Sterling, played by John Slattery, says, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but about 50% of this business comes down to, I don't like that guy. That's a direct quote from the show, but it talks about how likability or social skills impact so much of what we do in the workplace. And I know that it's a drama and it's meant to drive a reaction, but it's true. Your likability, your ability to communicate, to network, and to connect with other people is an influencer. Social skill and cognitive skill complement each other. If you are the most brilliant person at a cognitive skill, but you lack any social skill to present it or interact with other people on it, it will detract from the cognitive skill. If you are average at cognitive skills, you will always find people to talk to you about those skills. It may even enable you to get better at them. Okay? Jobs that require low levels of social skills are also likely to be routine jobs at high risk of automation. There's that asterisk again, right? Soft skills, human skills. Think about that one more time. These soft skills, these human skills are harder to automate. So the better you are at these skills, the more in demand you will be as a job seeker. Does that make sense? Okay? So here's a very confusing chart from Harvard Business Review. And I apologize to Harvard Business Review if I just called it a chart in any way confusing. But you see the lines are all over the place, and it looks at the change in employment and wage distribution for these different levels of skills, right? Low math, high social, high math, low social. And at the end of the day, what it shows is that high social skills are higher wage earners than low social skills. That social skills are a better indicator of overall earnings than math skills are. Again, if you can do both, great. But if you perceive that you have an opportunity to get better at social skills, and by the way, you can change, you can work on those skill sets and work on those soft skills, it will translate or may translate into greater earnings, greater success in the professional arena down the road. All right? Last but not least, let's talk about adaptability. All right? Darwin quote, throwing it out there. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. Our ability to adapt to our surroundings, regardless of how anybody feels about theories of evolution, in a professional setting makes perfect sense. Our ability to, what's the term, play the hand we're dealt, and to deal with the unexpected, how we come out of those situations, is a critical indicator of one of our major soft skills, that is adaptability. And going back to that elephant in the room, is that how we've all adapted and come out of the pandemic is a tremendous indicator of our flexibility. For the most part, we've seen a lot of people show a tremendous amount of adaptability. People who have had to start working from home, or people who have had to do multiple jobs at once. Now all of a sudden I'm a full-time employee and I'm a full-time teacher because I have a young child at home and their school is closed down. Right? We've learned a lot. It doesn't necessarily just build the character, it reveals it. How many of you have heard that before? Crisis doesn't build character, it reveals it. I think that that's very true in this case because it's revealed information about our adaptability. And this is a quote that comes from Fast Company. Employees with high adaptability are better equipped to take on new tasks, learn new technologies, see, so the soft skill directly relates to technology, and develop new proficiencies, all skills that provide positive benefits to companies working to keep up with the changing times. Technology skills, or hard skills, and social skills, human skills, soft skills, are not mutually exclusive. They do not exist in silos. As a matter of fact, they intertwine constantly. So having strong soft skills, human skills, can actually make you more innovative and more inclined to be able to build additional technological or hard skills. Any questions on this? Does it make sense? Okay, so last but not least, here's my advice. You want to build soft skills. You want to build the human skills. While you're here at Pace University, I encourage you to do so. So here is an acronym. Here are 6 things I encourage you, if you haven't already done this, to do so. Really quick, I want to get an idea for the room. How many of you are seniors getting ready to graduate in, let's say, May of 2022? A couple of you? How many of you are juniors? There's my intern class right there. Very cool. How many of you are sophomores? Any freshmen? So we have a really good mix in here. Okay, awesome. Seniors in the room, if you've done this stuff already, be prepared to talk about and to translate what you've done to a professional realm. And that's a different talk for a different day. All right? Those of you who are on the other end of the spectrum, my freshmen, my sophomores, if you haven't taken advantage of some of these things, you still got a lot of time. And I encourage you to do it immediately. So, advisement. I'm going to give the PACE group a little bit of a plug here. You have an amazing advisement team as far as the career services staff. I work with them frequently. I've worked with them for 3 years. Back before then with Enterprise, we got to know them for over a decade. They're phenomenal. All right? Jill's a rock star. Right? Just remember, yeah, she's not here. Right? So now you know that I'm telling the truth. Because if you were standing right back there, you'd be all like, I don't know, he's probably just saying that because she's here. And he wants pizza. Right?
Yeah.
But take advantage of your advisement. Here's the dirty little secret about your university services, like academic advisement or career services. You'll pay for it no matter how much you use it. So if you don't use it, thanks for the donation. Right? They say this about the gym every year. Do you know why gyms stay in business? It's not because of all the people that they're working out. It's because of the folks who go there on January 1st and sign up and use it for a month and then don't go the rest of the year, but don't cancel. Right? There was a funny episode of Friends. Ross and Chandler, I want to quit the gym. Anybody know that one? Okay, I should stick with Mad Men. Got it. All right, cool. No Friends fans here. Now I know. Right? But think about that. If you don't utilize these services, then you're still getting charged for them and you're just not getting any return. So utilize your advisement team. Develop your LinkedIn. By show of hands, how many, and I want you to keep them up. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? Keep it up if you have a LinkedIn profile. Now, keep them up if you can say that your LinkedIn profile is 100% complete. Half the hands went down, a couple of them slowly. My man, you're confident. All right, good, you put your hands up. I appreciate the Constitution, but that is very cool. Okay, good for you, that's excellent. If you don't, this is homework. I encourage you to work on your LinkedIn profile and get it to a point where it's 100% complete. Because as you're interacting with employers or hiring managers or alumni, and you want to make a connection with them beyond just the time that you're talking to them, you want to be able to put your best foot forward. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't connect if you're, say, 80% of the way there or anything like that. Still do that. But it's free to update your LinkedIn profile. Again, it's a living resume. You should take advantage of that. Volunteer. How many of you like to volunteer in some sort of community event? Do you mind sharing what you volunteer with?
I'm in a community service sorority, so I do a lot of stuff pretty much everywhere.
Okay.
But yeah, I mostly work with like Ronald McDonald House and stuff like that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Ronald McDonald House with community service. So you've actually combined 2 of our pieces of advice, volunteer and extracurricular activities, which is awesome. Anybody else want to share their volunteer activity of choice? You don't have to. That's what happened.
So at holiday times, it's a community group in Queens called Encore. Located in Elmhurst. We do like soup, like soup kitchens and both keep on and like that. So some sort of.
That's awesome.
We're doing cleaning jobs, soup kitchens, holiday jobs and everything. Just basically and everything. Also fun networking.
I love it. Thank you for doing that. That's fantastic. Now listen, Volunteering opportunities, you're doing them for altruistic reasons, but don't lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of networking community value in that. Because when you think about the number of people who would see that on a resume, who do something similar, now you may have a connection with a hiring manager or with a company, right? Same thing with Ronald McDonald House, it's a big name. Maybe they were part of the same community service sorority that you're a part of, right? There are ways to connect what you do by volunteering and think about the values you have, right? It's usually values driven. We volunteer because something's important to us, because we want to be a part of that. Align those values with the company that you're looking for. Does a company respect those values? Do they have the same or similar values to you? That might help you indicate what companies you want to look at in your job search. Intern. How many of you have already interned somewhere before? How many of you are actively looking for internships? Grab one of them packets before you leave, please. All right? Internships are now, where they were once very optional in a full-time job search, they're almost jacks or better to open. They're almost expected today. Not saying that if you don't get an internship that you're going to be unemployable. That's not the case. I didn't have one. I worked retail. Right? That was my job when I was in college, and it worked great for me, and I still went on to do what I love to do. But internships are more impactful today than they ever have been before. Classroom. Be able to talk about the experiences that you've had on the projects that you've worked on in the context of what skills you developed that you can bring to the workplace. And extracurricular activities. I will tell you, I am a sucker for people who are involved in clubs, organizations, and if you find yourself really ensconced in an organization and you have an opportunity to take a leadership role, that is one of those 4 soft skills we saw in that LinkedIn survey, right, that study before, that is part of the skills gap. If you can demonstrate leadership, that is a benefit to you. In these clubs and organizations, you learn communication skills. You learn teamwork. That was your call out, right? You said teamwork before. You learn teamwork. You learn organization skills and time management skills. This is all part of being involved in extracurricular activities. And these are transferable skills that you can then bring to whatever job it is. These, ladies and gentlemen, are soft skills for STEM students. Questions, thoughts? Anybody want to add anything? How am I on time? 12:54. We nailed it. Outstanding. All right. I invite you to keep in touch with me. I have to get to my next meeting, but this was great. Everyone participated. I think we had a lot of fun too. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I hope to be back next semester. Please grab business cards, contact cards, the packet with our internships, as well as our fancy webcam covers before you go. How many of you have a 120 class? We're going to get you out with plenty of time to make it, and even grab more pizza before you go. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
You saw